Welcome to We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard and I shall be your host for this evening. And tonight's show is a special show. It's what we call a quick start on the Kickstart show. And the reason that we do this is when somebody has started a Kickstarter campaign and it's been running for either a couple of days or a couple of weeks, and we get the creator in to have a chat about the campaign, how it's running, how it's going, and all that kind of good stuff. So joining me tonight from Orange Nebula Games is a gentleman by the name of Marc Neidlinger. Good evening, Marc.
Good evening, Richard.
How are you?
I am well, thank you for asking.
You're well, and you're also fully funded.
I am fully funded. It's been a great 24 hours.
You must be... You know, I saw you on Skype earlier. There was a little bit of a spring in your step. You know, you were looking a little bit shiny, happy people. You know,
yeah. It's a little bit overwhelming. I will tell you, it's great. The community has really come together.
I mean, the reason for people that have not listened to the show beforehand, I guess we better dial it back and say hello to everybody who hasn't listened to the show before. The reason that we're doing this is quite simply because we don't think there's enough podcasts out there about board games. And the second reason is that I was on the Board Game Spotlight Facebook group, and a certain Mr. James Hudson from Druid City Games was highlighting Epoch. And he was talking about, you know, it looked very, very interesting, but it wasn't getting an awful lot of love. And I thought, I like the look of this game. Let's get Marc on and let's have a chat with him and see where we go with things. So normally what we do is we like to find out a little bit about the history. So we like to have a little stare back in the past before, I guess, concentrating on the present, and then searching around for stuff, almost scavenging into the future. So, again, Marc, listen, thank you for coming on. I know it's short notice. I know this has been the craziest first kind of 24 hours of your life with regards to the Epoch Kickstarter campaign, because this is basically round 2, isn't it?
It is.
This is kind of like midway through the Rocky film after you've, you know... after Burgess Meredith got ill, kind of thing, and then you've done your training montage, and you know, and now you're back and you're taking names. So how are you feeling? How are you feeling at the moment?
I feel great, you know, and yeah, I did have that kind of rocky moment where I felt like I was up against the ropes, and learning a lot. There's a big learning curve when you do this for the first time. You know, regardless of how much preparation you've put into it, how much work and time you put into it, it's still a new experience. And so it has been a tremendous learning curve, but it's really taught me to rely on the community a lot. The gaming community has been phenomenal. And you know, guys like James Hudson, you just mentioned, among others, have been very helpful, and it's really opened my eyes to just how powerful community really is.
I mean, delving back into your history with the tree pressed hobby that is cardboard and tabletop, how did you first? I mean, are you a big player of the game yourself?
Yeah, I mean, going way back through the time portal. Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, you know, I was playing the family games and kind of got bored with those right away, probably because I didn't want to hang out with my family, and started playing, you know, games like Talisman.
All right.
You know, in probably the 90s, which I think predates some people, but you know, some of the more challenging games that didn't rely as much on luck, and really I started to realize that, you know, there was some story, there's some role playing that you could get into, and that really just kind of unlocked my imagination. And then, you know, from there I was just playing games, you know, through college, and then after college, you know, got into game groups, and it just kind of has stuck with me the whole time.
Did you play all the way through, or are you one of these people that kind of had a break about 16 to 17? and then came back to it, or have you constantly kind of been playing around with the tabletop?
Well, once you have children, massive life change happens, and you don't have time to kind of dominate the world that you know, in ways that you thought you could before. Yeah. You learn diplomacy when you get married, and some of those things happen with me, and I realized that board games are awesome, but they are kind of something that you have to be really intentional about setting a time to get together with friends with. So I have done it all along, to answer your question, but it's something that you really have to be intentional about planning.
Do you have a regular group of friends that you play with, like a game club that you go to, or do you just have people coming round, or do you?
Sorry, it's cool. I've had a game group that I've played with for over 15 years straight. Wow. And we play regularly, and it's the same group of 5 or 6 guys, and we've played so many games together now that we're not just playing games, we're playing each other based on where we're sitting, because we know each other so well, and it's actually been a pretty powerful experience to do that, to have over a decade of the same players.
Yeah.
Since I started playtesting Epoch, though, I am now a part of many game groups in the region. There's just a lot of gamers that I've really connected with in the past 2 years, and I would say in the hundreds, but probably some smaller groups, 4, 5, 6 different groups that I play with now.
All right.
A little bit more than I used to.
So you're out and about a lot more, kind of. I guess you would have been over the last kind of 6 months, kind of getting to know people and getting them to play test and stuff like that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And part of that is just really rewarding. I mean, designing a game and playtesting a game teaches you a lot about games, but it also teaches you a lot about yourself. And I think, for me, a lot of the challenges come with, designing a game that has a rewarding experience for someone who's different than you, a player who likes to play differently than you do. And, balancing it for different types of players has been pretty significant in my development. So that's been fun for me to connect in the community that way.
So in your group, is it kind of like almost like a kind of a heist mob? Kind of, you've got the guy that...
We dress up like gangsters.
No, I was well, I mean, if you do, then that's fine. I was gonna say, do you have the guy that's like, he's worker placement? Do you have the guy that he likes the kind of the card games? Do you have the kind of the miniatures boy? Do you have people that have like follow kind of same, or do you end up, have you all got kind of like generally the same kind of tastes?
I would say that my core group, we all prefer heavy strategy. There's, I would say 50 to 60% are heavy strategy, Euro influence. We play games like Zolkin, the Mayan calendar, and Anachrony has been a favorite. We like Scythe from Stonemeyer Games. Those have been some favorites. We don't really tend to play games that are too light anymore unless we're waiting for a player. So
have you kind of got into like the red wines of board gaming then, basically? Oh, no.
Oh, like viticulture?
I tell you, I set them up, you just keep knocking them down, Mark.
Yeah, viticulture is great. I don't think everybody in my group has played viticulture yet, but I really enjoyed that game as well. That is exactly the type of game that my group enjoys, my core group.
I mean, myself and regular co-host Colin, we did an episode where we kind of talked about Scythe and we talked about viticulture, and I kind of ended up on the viticulture side of the fence. Not because I like wine, but I do like the little glass beads you get. They're very tactile. They're very tactile, aren't they? You can just kind of roll them about in your hand, and you can just lose minutes of your turn, and people are staring at you and going, right, okay, are you graping that, or are you wine? What are you doing with that? Are you moving that up, kind of thing. You mentioned Zolkin, which we have spoken about before on the podcast, myself and Colin, and we really, really liked it. We were very lucky at the time. We had somebody that came in and knew the game, and they were actually played alongside somebody that was like played it in competitions of all things, so they were really, really good at explaining it. But the other game you mentioned is, well, obviously we've spoken about Scythe, but is it what was the other one? Anocracy?
I call it Anachrony.
Anachrony. I can't,
Yeah.
I have trouble pronouncing Carcassonne, so I'm never ever going to get this right. So what's an anachrony, for goodness sake? What's that all about?
I'll be honest, I'm not probably going to do it justice, but because we've only played it once and set it up a second time.
Okay.
It has a pretty extensive setup. It's a Kickstarter game that comes in a gigantic box that we picked up, and I think it came in the mail maybe a couple months ago. So it's fairly new to the market, and I think probably sold out the last I looked. It's a very good game. It has to do with time travel. It's a lot of action selection. It's just very engaging. I mean, it has some of the, I want to say, similar mechanics to like what a viticulture would have in terms of how you're selecting actions and almost drafting positions each turn. But a really kind of a compelling storyline too, with time travel and trying to go down on a planet and wear an exosuit and mine components and use those. It's been great. It's just right up our alley.
I'm just having a look at it. I'm actually trying to have a look at it just now, but obviously I've now failed 3 times to try to spell it. I'm just gonna. No. It looks. Let me just see it. Here we go. The A game is a competitive, epic Euro-style strategy game. Oh my goodness, it's huge.
Yeah, it's got a lot of components.
That's massive. That's kind of like if Scythe had a baby with viticulture, because you've got your single little boards, and then you've got minis in there as well, and
it's like if they had triplets. Yeah,
it's weird. So is the idea, is it kind of like a worker placement, kind of resource management? I mean,
yeah, with some action selection. It's turn-based. There are a lot of resources to manage, as you can see with all the components there. Yeah. If you're looking at it.
Oh yeah, it's
but
lovely.
It didn't take forever to play though. With as much of a setup as it had, we really enjoyed it after one play, and I think that's more than we can say for a lot of the games. And it was kind of unexpected, just because we hadn't really seen a whole lot about it, and I kind of looked at the project page and thought, gosh, they put the work in. Mm-hmm. It seems, like people do, with any crowd-funded game, you have to kind of scrutinize it a little bit and kind of see how much depth has been put into it, how much of a narrative and a story there is. Those are the things that at least have been important to me.
So it's by Mind Clash Games. So, and you can actually it did quite well. It got like 10 times its kind of asking target. So it romped in at $400,000, which is, that's no mean feat. That's a pretty, that's a pretty decent result. And it goes for, you're joking me, it goes for like $50, $60.
60? Really?
That can't be right. Oh wait, you've got the total thing is $100, so it's not bad. It's like there you go. Yeah. That's including the exosuits and also the base box as well. So that is probably more like it. We'll stick a cheeky little link in the show notes just in case anybody wants to check it out. So, but Mark, how do you get from having a regular game group and you're all sitting round, and was this a regular conversation in the group that that somebody says, one day I'm going to go to Vegas and I'm going to dress up as Elvis and I'm going to parachute out a plane, and everybody just gives you a knowing nod and a smile? When did was there the kind of the conversation around the table about you saying, I've got an idea for a game, and how did you get from kind of thinking I'm playing games to actually getting to the point where saying, well, actually, I'm going to make one. I'm going to take that leap and see where it goes. How did that kind of come together?
Well, the Elvis suit in the Vegas trip probably would have been a lot easier, and I probably could have accomplished that much quicker. I guess for a long, long time, I had it in my mind that I wanted to create a game. I'm a graphic designer by trade, and I like to create, I like to tell story. And I thought, gosh, I'm a gamer too. Maybe I could put those together. But as time goes by, you play games and you think, gosh, when am I going to have time to do that? I'm a parent, I have a job. And your core group of gamers, they hear you say, I'm going to design a game. They kind of roll their eyes back in their head and be like, yeah, is it my turn yet? And so I kind of...
Are you taking a winter card or not? Or what are you doing?
Exactly. So I kind of had to work independently of my core group at first and bring something to the table that actually showed that there was an effort going to be put behind it, and a commitment to actually, finish something significant. And so I spent months and months just kind of sketching and drawing and building mechanics and designing early thoughts that I would, put together on my own and kind of play test myself. And then I started designing actual, the map and some components and putting some things together. And then at one point, you just kind of ask your best buddies, hey, you want to give this a spin with me? And they're like, all right, well, okay. Yeah, okay, well, let's put it out there and see what it is. And, it started that way, I guess you could say. And, as I started to build it, I realized, gosh, this is going to be a pretty significant commitment of my time and my life.
Yeah.
Because it sounds amazing. It sounds simple. It sounds like, gosh, I'm just going to take everything I know about gaming and I'm going to take all the best stuff and I'm going to put it in a little box and I'm going to take all the stuff I don't like and I'm not going to put that in the game. And, I'm going to develop it and I'm going to make it really cool. And, gosh, in 6 or 7 months, I'm going to have something that people are going to love.
And then I'm going to be sticking on a sack. I'm going to be sitting on a big pile of gold. I'm going to be like Smog in the Hobbit film.
Exactly.
And I'm going to have Benedict Cumberbatch doing my voiceover for my Kickstarter video.
Yeah. And then you wake up and you look like Frodo. So it's been fun. It's been a ton of work, but yeah, at one point I just decided that the time has come for me to not think about it anymore. The time had come for me to actually do it. And if I was going to just make it happen, I was going to bring it into the world. And even if it didn't fund or if it didn't go, into production, at least I would have designed a game that I could play locally with my friends and let that be my, my marker for success. And so I just said I was going to do it. Come hell or high water, and that's what I did.
Have the other guys, the other people in the group, have they now kind of went, oh, I've got an idea? Have they kind of followed suit? Are we going to end up with a kind of like, is the Orange Nebula going to end up going to be a publisher as well for all your friends too? Or
well, I'll tell you what, they have their mark in this game because I don't really feel like game designers can take credit for bringing a game into the world because it takes a team. It takes a lot of people to help refine and add ideas and concepts and shape them and bring them to life. One person could never do that.
No.
So there's a lot of amazing game designers out there, but they're relying on their network. They're relying on their core groups and really should give a lot of credit to those people. So like, yeah, Eric and Steve, two of my best friends, they've played this thing more times than they probably wish they had. And they've added ideas and thoughts and concepts to really bring balance into it. And yeah, I think in some ways, I've unlocked kind of this idea that maybe they want to kind of start coming up with some ideas too. And so we might work collaboratively on a project, soon. I've got some ideas rolling around, for something that could come together in the next year or something. But yeah, it's been a crazy journey.
So you're playtesting this, you're getting everything together, and you put the Kickstarter together, and then you put it out there, and it's stalling a bit. I mean, this is the first time. Did that surprise you, or I mean, was it kind of, I'm back in 7th grade and I am learning everything again that I thought I knew what I was doing?
The thing that was shocking for me about that, so my first Kickstarter, I decided to pull the plug about halfway into it, on some advice that I solicited from some influencers. Jamie was one of them. I studied and I planned for 18 months on how to do a Kickstarter. I read Jamie's book 6 times. I was, building community. I was involving myself with blogs and basically just making really good sound decisions from a business standpoint, from a, focusing on the game, making sure that it's being play tested and it's balanced. And, I just did the work. I put the work in, and, I felt pretty confident when I launched the first time, and I thought, gosh, this is probably not going to, be groundbreaking, and it's not going to, shake the earth or anything, but it's probably going to do decently well.
Yeah.
And, I learned a few new lessons when I did that. And I liken it to this. It's kind of like, learning Japanese, and you can take classes at the local college, and you can read a book. And then when you get on a plane and you fly to Tokyo, you realize that you're not quite as fluent as you thought.
I know.
And it's just no amount of preparation, no amount of planning can prepare you for the reality of the experience. And so, timing was big. I was up against, Cool Mini or Not had their Zombicide Green Horde, and Lords of Hellas both were up when I launched.
Yeah, okay.
And that was like the death toll right there. I just, people were, beyond their budget for the month for gaming, and that's what a lot of people were, saying in the forums. And, there were a couple things I could have structured better on the site. James Hudson was like, gosh, here's some things that you could improve that with. And a lot of people in the community were like, well, let's do some micro adjustments. And at the end of the day, what it came out, I just, I needed to go through that learning curve, and come out stronger. And so that's kind of what I did. I put my head down and I thought, gosh, I'm going to ask the community what they think. And quite honestly, that's even like what Jamie was telling me. He's like, ask the community what they would do. And I was like, but I'm asking you.
I know, you should know these things. He's like, no, I don't think you get it. He says, my next project's not on Kickstarter. It was like, okay then.
Right. So I did both, and what I found is, the more community focused you make the entire project, the more successful it's going to be. And it's going to be more successful for them, which was my intent to begin with. And so I just started asking questions, and I just started being available, and I started taking advice. And I mean, I feel like I've been doing that the majority of the time anyway, but I really kind of put a lot of my own personal, thoughts and feelings and subjectivity. I put those aside and just thought, this isn't really about necessarily my vision, because I'm not going to be present when everybody's playing this game on their table. I want it to be something that they got to inform in the process. And so through the course of doing that, and I just tirelessly, I learned to hustle. So the weeks between the first campaign and the second campaign were extremely active, long days, and a lot of learning. And I think it paid off. We funded in 24 hours, and there's just a tremendous community of backers, and the Kickstarter, the group that we have is phenomenal, and I'm really humbled by all of it.
Let's it's amazing. I was kind of like, this is good, because I think I was looking over the campaign today, and it was like, you can see it already. You can see the guys already building up. You can see the guys kind of saying, let's get this on the kick track. Here's the link for Board Game Geek. Get yourselves clicking on it. Remember to kind of be proactive. So you can see it's like you're, there's Kickstarter champions that go about, and you see them, they back, I don't know how they manage to do it, but they back like hundreds and hundreds of projects, whether it's going in at like $1 just so they can get the updates and they can comment, but you see them, they're just like your little kind of Kickstarter soldiers. And they're the guys that seem to be putting the Board Game Geek links on every morning. They're the guys that are reminding people to go on the kick tracks, and then you go into Board Game Geek, and they're the guys that have obviously sat down and read through the rules. And so when you're not around, when like at the moment, or later or tomorrow, when you'll be in your bed, they'll be the guys that will be answering the questions from the guys from like where I am in the UK. They'll be answering the questions for those guys in their place, and it's really, really kind of like a powerful thing, which is good, which is always good. Let's talk about Epoch, because I'm fascinated by it. As I say, it's really strange because there was a buzz about it, and then when it went, people were like, "Oh, that's rubbish." And then it's back, and people are like, "Yay!" But let's get more people going, "Yay!" Do you want to tell everybody out there kind of what Epoch is all about and what you're doing and mechanics? And I will shut up and give the floor to you.
No, sure. So, I'll just give you a little preface here. I wanted to design a game that everyone could relate to, and they could just kind of call on the inner adventurer or the inner hero or heroine inside themselves. And so the premise of the game is you've been living a life of wretchedness, and you've been tossed overboard of your ship for your cruelty and your corruption and your criminal activities or whatnot, the life that you chose, and you kind of have this near-death experience, and so you wash up on the this island where you're found by a traveler, and that near-death experience has kind of unlocked something inside you, something better, something stronger, and so the premise of the game is you're restoring your lost honor. You've decided to make a choice to view yourself in the world a little bit differently than you had before. Mm-hmm. So that's essentially the premise. Is there's some type of a restoration or it's a study in heroism actually at the root for me. Is what is heroism? Does it mean swinging a bigger sword than the sword you had last turn? Yeah. Or does it what are some of the things that you would call forth out of you to be heroic? And so at the very beginning of the game, that was the concept I wanted to build. Is let's find out what heroism really means. Does knowledge play a role? Does wisdom play a role? Yeah. Does strength play a role? And so, as the narrative continues, essentially you're on this island, and as you're going along, you basically get to role play. You get to decide how you want to restore your lost honor. Do you want to do that through companionship and add people into your party and diversify? Do you want to seek after magical relics and use those powers? Do you want to gain traits, like valorous, valiant traits, that are going to give you passive abilities, or do you want to go kill monsters, and use your courage? Do you want to control territories? Do you want to, and so there's a lot of different things possible, but from there I just wanted players to be able to, organically, turn to turn, try new strategies, adapt strategies, or play a single strategy all the way through and still be competitive regardless of how they approached it. So that's kind of a nutshell. And
what's the kind of the mechanics like? I mean, first of all, is it a 2 to 5 player game? Can you get more players than that? I mean,
it's 2 to 5 players. Personally, I think 2-player works really well, especially compared to other games that don't really scale as well down. And it is an action selection game with some area control options to it. Each turn, you're going to take 3 actions. You're going to activate a companion, and basically gain their abilities and their attributes. You're going to move or travel on the map, and then you're going to also, take a map action, basically. So, there's a hexagonal map, and then there's little triangles in between the hexes that you can move on. So at any given time, you're adjacent to 3 hex tiles.
Mm-hmm.
And so as your map action, you can basically visit one of those 3 places and do the thing that it allows you to do. So if you're next to the cave, you could go in and defeat a monster. If you're next to the tower, you could acquire a relic. If you're at the library, you can study to gain knowledge. If you're at the command post, you can use your strength to tame a different mount and increase your speed, those types of things.
The artwork is striking in it. Was this you? Or did you get help with this? Did you go out to an artist as well for help on the art?
I wish it was me. Yeah. I took, sadly, no, it wasn't me. I took an approach similar to kind of like what Magic the Gathering does. And I approached a number of artists, and there's actually over 20 artists and illustrators that I employed to do the artwork in this game. And originally my thought behind that, by the way, that's a lot of work and a lot of management. Just a note for game designers out there. It's much simpler to work with one artist, but I feel that the visual language development of a game helps to create immersion. And so the graphic design, the typography, the iconography, and the illustrations are super important to me. If a game doesn't have a certain level of that, I will not play it. Even if it's awesome game, I don't care because the experience is central for me. Uh-huh. And so I realized that different people, relate differently to different styles of artwork. And so if a game has just one style of illustration, it may not appeal to them. But what if the game has 12 or 13 different styles of artwork? Well, they're going to have something that they can connect with. And so to me, I diversified the audience a little bit and helped invite different types of people into the game. Okay.
It takes about 30 minutes, is it 15 to 30 minutes per player?
Yeah. Based on the variable endgame conditions, we've had 4-player games end in 30 minutes. Uh-huh. And we've had 2-player games go 90 minutes. So it's much more variable than an average game would be. It is very rare that a game will last more than 2 hours, and that's very intentional. I wanted the turns and the tempo to be very quick. Mm-hmm. But depending on the play styles of all of the players, it's possible if nobody's trying to trigger the end of the game, they can continue to do what they're doing. But there's built-in acceleration because as players score, end game triggers go off and they add more conditions for the end of the game as the game goes on. So there is an escalation that happens throughout it. But yeah, generally speaking, I think 15 to 30 minutes is a really safe number.
That's pretty
per
cool.
player.
That's pretty cool. Putting together, this is the other thing, is, have you put all together all these components, and have you had to put together quite a few review copies to get the word out as well when you're putting this together as well? Has that cost you? Have you had to shell out quite a lot of money to can even get the Kickstarter to where it is just now?
I have no more money. The money is gone. I've been working with Print Play Games for my prototypes, and I have sent out a lot of prototypes. Uh-huh. I think it's really valuable to have people playtesting the game without you present, for one. Number one, to make sure that it's something that they can get their head around, and number two, just because I think you dilute the feedback when you're there. Mm-hmm. It does get a little bit expensive, but I think it's a necessary part of the process, and the A/B testing is super important. Even before the prototypes, though, just the sheer amount of iterations that I went through for the game is staggering. And maybe it's just the way I do it. I'm not sure. I'm probably not as smart as some of these other guys who make these games, guys and gals. But I have like 118 versions of the map alone that I worked through. And so the playtesters will tell you, gosh, this thing's changed 100 times. Yeah. And that's just kind of, I think that comes with the territory. So long as you're always refining it and making it clearer and simpler, it's a good thing. Otherwise, I think you could just iterate forever.
Is there little standees that represent the characters in here as well? I'm just looking on the Kickstarter just now again, just to remind myself.
Yeah, right now it has standees, and there's boy, there's some significance to the icons on those that I have not really gone into that yet.
Okay.
Because there's a stretch goal that we possibly might hit, or an expansion that may come that kind of unlocks a little bit of that. I'll just tell you right now. It has to do with guilds that once existed on the island.
Right, okay.
This might be the first time I've mentioned it publicly, but, yeah, so the standees I think are interesting. I was going to do miniatures to begin with.
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask. Was there a pressure to maybe bring miniatures in because of Lords of Helios and any other CMON game that comes out? People seem to be shouting about miniatures.
It's a polarizing topic, I've found, because the purists, kind of are against miniatures and really just kind of want the intuitive, intelligent gameplay, and then you've got another crowd that just really wants the value that comes associated with having beautiful components and something tactile to enhance their experience. And I'm kind of walking a very delicate balance in between the two, because the game does not require miniatures at all. Mm-hmm. But I wanted a little bit of that, luxury feel to it. So I've designed a few miniatures. Originally there was going to be a ton, and each character was going to have one and all of that. But at the end of the day, after all the play tests, I decided it was less significant to really focus on a player miniature, and more significant to focus on, the fun and the balance of the game, and let the miniatures command kind of a different space. And so I've designed them a little differently.
Well, the art, to be honest with you, Mark, the art style kind of pushes me more towards standees than it does towards miniatures, because if you've got a group of miniatures together, it'd be harder to represent the different art styles maybe that you'd want to put in. If you decided, okay, you put an expansion in, you put in a stretch goal, and you say, okay, well, we're going to bring in this guy as an additional choice of player, but I'm using this artist for the player character. So if I try to represent him as a miniature, he's not going to sit right with the rest of the characters.
Yeah, I think. It's interesting, as I went through the development of the different ways that I could approach how people are going to, role play or create their own story each time they play this. And each player actually gets a wretch card as well that sits in front of them, and to go along with the standee, and essentially, at this point, I would agree with you. I think the standees have always kind of been a little bit more top of mind for me for how I wanted to envision people actually interacting with their things on the board. After the first turn, you're really just kind of looking for your standee and moving it. And I wanted the players' attention to be out on the board for strategy, and spending less time looking at their, either at their own, token, or at their dashboard, the things in front of them. I wanted, most of their attention to go out, so that there's a lot more interaction, a lot more strategy happening outward. Yeah,
it's like kind of playing Scythe. The miniatures in Scythe are absolutely fantastic, but sometimes you have to kind of clear them out the way to see what's the actual happening on the square. Sometimes, you kind of like, especially if you've got like all your you've got all your workers there, you've got a couple of mech units there, and you've got your commander there as well. You're just like, okay, so what square is this? An oil square, or is this a this a wood square? Is this a corner? I think you're right. It can take away. It can kind of take away the focus from, this isn't a miniatures game. This is almost like a kind of it's a resource management kind of game. You need to be concentrating on where you're going, what you're going to be doing, and then the choices that you make kind of around you. And I've had this myself and Frank West, who did City of Kings. He ran a really successful Kickstarter campaign, and his is basically here's a grid of tiles that you're going to explore, and he had standees, and he probably faced exactly the same kind of questions in his head about you did, but he came very quickly on the side of, I'm having standees because I love my art, and he got questioned all the time on miniatures. And you're right, you could see the people the guys clearly on the side of wanting miniatures in the game saying, where's my miniatures, man? You know what I mean? I'm going to give you $90 for this game. I expect kind of miniatures. And I think maybe in some ways your bigger guys, your bigger label guys in this world have kind of pushed it to be almost like an expectation. But
the thing that's interesting about that is I think we set our expectations based on our past experiences. But, the game here, for those who have backed it and haven't played it yet, I mean, you almost need to kind of encounter it or go through a play first before you make that type of a call. Should it be a miniature? Should it be a standee? Because those things have been considered. I did and I do have a miniature version for players who would prefer to play with miniatures. I think that's fine. I think if they want to, they should have the control to play the game that they want to, the way that they enjoy the most. And so long as I can afford it, I'm going to try to build as much value in as I can for different types of players. But and I love big innovative companies like Cool Mini or Not. They've got amazing games. Their miniatures are phenomenal.
Yeah.
But they hit like 53 stretch goals on their Green Horde, and 53 miniatures. It's like it doesn't even register for me. It's like I don't know if I'd have time to set that out on my table and play. Granted, there's probably a lot of replayability that comes with that, but
I know
I didn't want to get lost in the biggie size me mentality, right? I just want this game. It's well thought out. It's very delicately balanced. It has asymmetrical balance, so it's not more advantageous to kill monsters than it is to, attain traits or add companions or do area control. You can do all of them if you want to and not suffer a consequence. And I think that's the thrust of the value of this game, and you can do it differently every time. Yeah. That is much more important to me than, gosh, I want another big, cool-looking miniature that and I think that's part of it, though, too, so not to diminish that, but for me, it was more about the experience of playing than the stuff in the box.
Well, I mean, to me, it sounds like you've got, going back to your, to 20 minutes ago when you were talking about the group, I mean, it sounds like almost a case of you wanting this to be the game where it is the guys that just, shall we play Epoch? Yeah, let's get it out because this time I'm going to kick your ass at it. Oh no, you're not, kind of thing. Because it looks like replayability seems to be quite an important part of the game in the fact that the tiles themselves, you start with people look at the Kickstarter, there will be show notes and so there will be links, so make sure you look at the Kickstarter, but the board itself it's hex, isn't it? And you've got the little triangles in between, but you can put down, I take it the tiles for the different resources and that, they change every game. Is that correct? Yeah,
I mean, at the base level, I think drawing tiles each game adds to the replayability in I think probably not an uncommon way. I think it's fairly common to have that. And I think it's a strong thing to do. The thing that I've focused on for replayability in this game is that there's a lot of cards, there's a lot of options, there's a lot of tiles, but the decisions that you make every game, it would take 50 games for you to exhaust all the different paths that you could take or all the different combinations. It would take even longer. I mean, some of the cards create combinations with other cards, and so exponentially, this trait works really well with this companion. How, what's the likelihood of both of those being available to me in each game? And then you match that up with, oh gosh, this person has a treachery card that shuts this aspect of this person's thing down, and there's just so many variables that it feels like a unique experience each time you play. That was more the thrust of the replayability, although I think the map tiles being different every time. The other thing that's really cool that I really like is, you're not playing with the same tiles every time either. So there's expansions and tile sets that you could swap some out. And if you don't like a particular one for some reason, just don't play with it. Play with a different one, and that just adds to the amount of variables that you can have every time you bring it out.
Because I mean, you've got, as you said, you've got your kind of your 6 main attributes, things like inspiration, wisdom, knowledge, vision, strength, and courage. But you said, as you said yourself, you can combine them together to create kind of other things as well, which I was kind of reading about earlier on today. So that kind of adds to it. With you, I guess, with you having kind of card tiles and card sets and stuff like that, have you toyed with kind of expansions for Epoch, or is it too early for you to be kind of even buying a ticket for that train?
Well, there's a couple ways I would answer that. There, on the Kickstarter page, there are a couple what I'm calling mini expansions.
Yeah.
That I just kind of wanted to put all in the same box and just give everybody a lot of game that they could take, 10 or 12 plays to kind of get through all of it once. And so there's the Myths and Wonders expansion that kind of introduces a collaborative event that is optional. So if you have a 5-player game, 3 people may decide they want to go kill this big monster, and it's going to drop loot, and they can work together, but they're kind of still working against each other at the same time. So that's one that's kind of in there. There are a couple different tile sets that I've added that aren't really expansions. The thing that I've been asked most for is a solo version. And so to me, I'm kind of treating that like an expansion where I don't think I'm going to be able to have that ready by the end of the campaign here, but it may be something that I gift to everyone after the campaign, or as the files are getting ready to go to the manufacturer. If I can make it balanced, if I can make it fun and play at the level that the multiplayer does, that would be my first priority, just because so many people have asked me for that. My goal was never to release a game and then be like, every season I'm going to come out with another expansion for it and kind of monetize it. That's never been my deal. There may be 1 or 2 expansions that I get excited about at the most. But after that, I think I'd rather just tackle a whole other endeavor.
Mm-hmm. Have you planned out, I know it sounds like a bit, have you kind of at the back of your mind got kind of like stretch goals planned, or have you, because when I spoke to James Hudson, he said, well, we planned up to, X 100,000 because we kind of thought it was going to be hitting that. And then we surpassed it, and then we had to get the artist on the job as quickly as possible to draw the last couple of stretch goals because we weren't kind of ready. But, I mean, in your mind, have you kind of thought, well, let's be humble with this and plan up to X value of stretch goals? Or have you got everything kind of laid out, ready to go if it kind of, and it's, it's taken off. I mean, you've added another, you're $4,000 above target, it looks like now.
Yeah, I planned a certain amount of stretch goals, not based on funding goals at all. It was more about what does the game need to have?
Yeah.
What would increase, the experience for players? And then I kind of put those in order of importance and then basically reconfigured those based on my costs. Like, adding the miniatures, adds a significant amount for tooling costs and those types of things. Yeah, but I actually think that it's fun. Those types of things can be really valuable for certain players who like that. I have X amount, and I've come up with new ideas, but I'm not gonna, I don't have any pipe dreams that this gold is going to be falling from the sky anytime soon. It's, and I'm me running around with a big pot trying to catch it.
And wearing a hat, Mark. You got to wear a hat.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you didn't get smacked in the top of the head. What was he doing? Well, he was chasing his dream, and he got hit in the temple by a bit of gold.
That's right. Well, I might be willing to take a few lumps for some gold right now. But yeah, I've been much more intentional to make sure that the game survives reviews and critical feedback has been much more important to me, that it stands the test of time, and it's a lot less about stretch goals for me. I know the Kickstarter community, the crowdfunding community loves their stretch goals, and I want to give them what they want. But at the end of the day, that is a lot less important to me than making sure that they actually enjoy playing the game, the base game.
Yeah.
And then if I can add to it, I think that's great. But I'd rather just let the game stand the test of time.
And reviews, I mean, the reviews you've been getting have been kind of just wow. I mean, people have been saying some really, really nice things about Epoch. It's been really well received. I didn't get an opportunity to get all of the reviews that I wanted, and that may have been my fault for not planning out far enough. A couple of them were really booked. Man vs. Meeple, I've been trying to get in their schedule. We've been talking yesterday and today. I think I still am going to have them do a review. It may not be done until after the campaign. I'm still going to have them do it because those guys are great. I've talked to Rado about doing a 2-player. So nice guy, Rado.
He's great, and this game plays really well with 2 players. And I don't really have a whole lot of data from playtesters saying, "Gosh, this game plays great with 2 players."
Rado's on my hit list. So Rado, if you are listening, and if you ever listen, first of all, that will make me happy and potentially cry. But if you do ever fancy coming on and chatting. I'm not doing a video with you though, mate, but I will do some audio. But
he's phenomenal.
He works really good. But I mean, you said you're bringing obviously the potentially the Man versus Meeple review afterwards, which is you guys like your Rado and stuff like that as well. Are you one of these guys? Are you going to be bringing in a late pledge for Epoch? Is that kind of crossed your mind?
Fortunately, I am, yeah. And part of my timing with the relaunch is this actually, August 10th is the last day of the campaign. And then 5 days later, I'm flying to Gen Con where I'm going to demo the game.
All right.
And I'm going to be using backer kit, and they're going to allow me to take pledges all the way up until I want to send files to manufacturing. So I'm hoping, for a short window of time, maybe a month, I'm going to be able to take late pledges just for people who maybe didn't get a chance to see it, now can see it before we send files off. And I think that's a bonus.
Oh, I think it's becoming a bit of a norm. I do see, it's really funny because I am one of these annoying people that if I see a game and I like it, I will commit and I'll back it. But there are a few games that are on my list which I have chucked a buck at just to see, because I'm interested in the updates. I'm interested in where the kind of the game goes, and also if it's giving you access to a late pledge manager, then that's kind of attractive to me as well. And it's just because if I could, I would go out and I would quite happily back every project in the world. But like everybody else, I have, you've got your constraints on your budget. But also, I think that, and this is a while ago, we had Gary Devereaux from Purgatory Minis who was on, and happy birthday, Gary, for about a couple of days ago, mate. But he had late pledges coming in. It said it increased his overall total by about 25%. In fact, the backers that he were losing towards the end of the campaign, the kind of the backers regret guys, they're kind of not deficit that it called, but bringing it back down towards the target, that was wiped out by the kind of the late pledges, which is kind of good. So that's good. Well, that's excellent. If you're going to be, are you going to be demoing it? Are you getting a booth yourself then? Are you going to be all boothed up? Are you going to have a couple of helpers over there as well? Is it Steve? Is he going to go with you?
Well, actually, I'm fortunate. One of my friends here actually owns a company that already has a booth at Gen Con every year. I know there's a waiting list to get one. So he's a longtime friend of mine, and so I get to kind of piggyback and get a table there. I don't have any help, so I'm probably going to have to just set some times where I'm demoing and times when I'm going to be out meeting the community and checking other people's stuff out. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to be there the whole week, so making a lot of connections. But yeah, I do have a booth, fortunately, awesome. Which isn't something everybody can say.
And have you got a T-shirt?
You know, I am going to make a T-shirt, I think. I just was thinking about this yesterday. I read Jamie Stegmaier's blog often, and I remember one article comes to mind. It's like, you know, are you selling a board game or are you selling T-shirts? You really should draw that line. And I've always kind of been against having that type of thing in the campaign for the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
But I've got a really cool, compelling idea for a T-shirt that I think people would want to wear. And so it may not even be in the Kickstarter, but I think people are going to love it. I have a small branding team is my daytime job, and they would love to get working on this. And so I'm going to put something together, and I'll send it to you before I send it out. And
on the back,
feedback.
On the back, you could just have Jamie said no.
Exactly, I like that. A little cat icon above it.
Just a little bit at the bottom. Not being cheeky, but, you know, just kind of saying, well, you know, sometimes.
Yeah, a little hashtag.
Man's got a T-shirt.
Jamie told me not to.
Yeah. Yeah,
I did it anyway.
Hashtag read your blog. Ignored it.
Right.
Going forward, and, you know, Epoch's going to happen. It seems to be there's getting some love, and it's going to pick up some traction. And Kickstart thinks it's going to do some really, really decent bank as well. Are you thinking about what you're going to be doing next? Have you thought about? I mean, you mentioned you've got other projects. I mean, is this kind of making you think? Well, actually, this is going to work out, and let's move on to the next thing. I mean, is Orange Nebula learn to talk? My goodness, I apologize profusely for my inability to even say the word nebula. Have you got other ideas?
You know, I don't have any ideas that this is going to financially change my career path.
No.
I put a lot into this game, and I think it shows. I think you do the work, you put the time in, you plan, you prepare, and you bring in the community, and good things are going to happen. I want to inspire other people to do the same. You know, whatever Kickstart says, I think is a little pie in the sky.
Yeah,
I don't have those types of dreams. I'm not quite that relaxed. I would say that just bringing the game into the world is enough for me. That's kind of all I was hoping for. If I break even after my investment so far, I will be very happy.
Yeah.
It's gonna take a little bit more for me to make back what I've put into it, and I probably won't recoup the time that I put into it. I don't know. I might. Will there be more though? There probably will be, and really, it's more just because I'm a creator, and I enjoy the creating and the narrative and the story and the graphic design and creating that experience more than anything. It's you know, the manufacturing and marketing and shipping and fulfillment and all of that stuff is not the part of this that I'm at all interested in. It's you know, I'd rather just talk with you about board games like I'm doing now. And you know, just create something unique and different. And even with Epoch, you know, it's not a huge departure from a common narrative. I wanted to take a fantasy setting, a fantasy theme, and build something a little different with, you know, the resource management part of it. We're talking about those attributes again. My next project is probably going to be a little bit more daring. That's what I would say, and I'll probably just leave it at that.
I like that. Just leave it. Give me everything and give me absolutely nothing.
Right.
You can tell you're involved in brand management.
Well, I'm learning a lot too. That's the thing. I mean, this has been one huge university for me. I feel like I did my 4 years.
Has it made you kind of look differently at how you do your day job involved in what you're kind of doing? I mean, did you take a lot of your day job into running this, and have you found now I can actually take some of what I've learned so far back into the day job?
Yes, there is a piece of this that I can definitely take into my day job. This is, I would say, the biggest thing is building community, that aspect of branding, whatever you're bringing into the world. If you can build a mob of people around you, you're going to be more successful. It's just strength in numbers.
Yeah.
And what that sounds like and what that means are two different things. And so doing it is much different than thinking about doing it. And, that's probably applicable in a number of levels. But, it's just been a massive learning curve, and it's been super fun. I don't have this, I'm not going to be probably a big game company or anything like that. That isn't my goal. However, the passion projects that pay off make you want to do more passion projects, right?
Yeah.
And so if this is really well received after people get it, which I think it will be, that's going to hopefully allow me to build some more momentum, and let the game development aspect influence my other career, and vice versa. I think that's the plan.
Awesome. This has been fascinating, because I kind of like hearing people maybe before and kind of during the actual kind of Kickstarter journey. Oh my goodness, I sound like America's Got Talent. But
yeah.
If people when people have listened along tonight, and if they want to keep an eye on what you're up to and what you're doing, where do you exist on the fabulous internet webs?
Oh, the easiest way to get a hold of me is just email me right through my website, and I'll just give you the email address. It's Marc with a C at orangenebula.com.
Okay.
That's by far the easiest way. While the Kickstarter campaign is live, there's a lot of backers making comments and messages and things like that. And that's awesome. I think that's great because they introduce themselves to each other, and it creates more community. That's a great way. Board Game Geek, obviously, huge mega forum for gamers. I think everybody should go there. I think everybody should participate. And if you do, follow Epoch in there. It's going to be awesome.
You have Facebook as well, I believe. Orange Nebula.
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of them. Orange Nebula. Yeah.
We will of course make sure that we add all of the links to the show notes so that we have notes to show. There you go.
That's awesome.
There you go. No, thank you very much for coming on. I understand, it's like not even kind of 36 hours in and you're speaking to some strange Scottish guy about 3,000 miles away, so I really appreciate you taking the time when you're probably like going, I need to get an update out. When's this guy going to shut up?
Well, no, let me tell you, I appreciate what you're doing for the industry and for the gaming community. It takes a lot of effort to do what you do. I've listened to many of your podcasts, and they are extremely valuable. And let me just tell you, from a community guy, thank you for what you're doing, because you can't see as much influence as you're putting out there, and it's paying off for a lot of people. So a lot of gratitude from this side.
Oh, thank you very much. And if you do, that kind of, that was like a side swipe to the head. Well, we do try. The aim of this was always to kind of give, I don't know, I've always been interested in kind of speaking to people and finding out what they do, because I'm a nosy person. I'm a sales guy by trade. So my job is to find out people, and as I say, I'm going to probably charge you $300 at the end of this for doing nothing. But no. But if you do want to keep a kind of a track on what we do, then we are on we're on Facebook, we are on Twitter, we are on Instagram, all at We Are Not Wizards. We're on YouTube because normally all of our episodes will automatically get sent up to YouTube thanks to the fabulous hosting company that we use, which is Podbean. We are not sponsored by them, but they are pretty good. If you can find us on all the kind of the various kind of podcast places, so you've got Stitcher, and there's Spreaker, and there's Acast, and of course there's Apple Podcasts as well. And as we always say, if you have liked what you've heard tonight, we really appreciate those iTunes reviews. Apparently they create magic out there in the atmosphere, so let's create some magic. If you have liked what you heard, then give us a review. But as we always say, don't give us a 10, because that will make me big-headed. And don't give us a 1, because that will make us cry. Give us a 5, somewhere in the middle, because that's average. And as we say, we are a little bit average.
No 5s. 9.5.
Everybody,
9.5.
Every single person ruins that joke. The Apple Podcast rating system.
Now you're an 8.8.
Only goes up to 5. But the person who's not been average tonight is the one rather wonderful, fantastic Mr. Marc Neidlinger from Orange Nebula.
Pronunciation strong.
There you go. Like, unlike my passwords. As I say, we will be putting notes with links to the Kickstarter. We can only wish you the very, very best for the campaign going forward, Mark. We're excited to see Epoch getting made, and we'll be hitting kind of tabletops around the world, which is a kind of a cool thing. There are only 2 more things to do. And the first thing, you lovely people out there, is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Mark?
We are not wizards.
Definitely not. Do you know what we do? We may be wretches. We may be crawling up the beach. We may be trying to seek our inner strength. We may even try to look for vision. We may combine these things together in order to build ourselves up from the negative into the positive, and then act like noblemen who are wise and give guidance and patience and love through to everybody that they meet. But we are definitely not wizards.
Thank you, my friend.
And the second thing is to say goodbye. So as I say, it's goodbye from the rather fabulous, wonderful and fantastic Mark. Say goodbye, Mark.
Goodbye, everyone.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe. Roll 6s. Don't be a wretch, be a good person.
Don't be a wretch.
And keep an eye out for this Epoch Kickstarter, because it's going places, and you don't want to be the guy that says, I wish I backed. But until next time, goodbye.
Thank you. Be amazing.